And Lakesh and Veritas, everyone. Welcome to Your Energy, Your Health. Be responsible with empowering solutions. I will now like to start by raising the vibration in the space that we're in now by calling for the highest possible vibration, calling for the highest possible vibration, and calling for the highest possible vibration, calling forth the truth to come forward into discussion today so that we may see the truth in all that we see, so that we may hear the truth in all that we hear, and so that we may speak the truth in all that we say. Shall we be in that frequency of truth, and shall we have nothing less than the truth? Shall we call for the power divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? Shall we call for the power divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? Shall we call for the power divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? I now ask that everyone take a sip of water if you have it, and ask for the water to hydrate our brains and body. Water is a medium that and it shall assist in the flow of information that we share here together here on Clubhouse. All right. Now let us take a deep breath in, bringing in peace and releasing and exhaling and let everything else out. Take another deep breath in, bringing in joy and gratitude and exhaling out. And another deep breath in, bringing in life into our bodies, and exhale out, releasing all that does not serve us. And Lakesh and Veritas, everyone, I call for the oneness and truth of the information shared by each and every one of us on this call, calling in that frequency of truth and all that is truth with honor, respect, and gratitude to you all. For those who are unfamiliar with the term, the greeting in Lakesh is the Mayan greeting for oneness, signifying unity, where everything and everyone is interconnected. It is the idea of community where we can share with one another our ideas, goals, and aspirations. And veritas is the Latin word for truth, to see the truth in all things. So therefore, Enlication Veritas is that declaration of oneness and truth, which we are clearing our spaces, the space we're in now, so that we may be able to bring forth a truthful, elevated, and enlightened discussion this evening, clearing away those ill thoughts that we tend to pick up and carry with us from our everyday life experiences. Remember, our words have power, so it is important that we use our words carefully, using words of upliftment, encouragement, and enlightenment. And by doing so as a collective, will help us to transform our spaces and places into higher frequencies that will support better experiences in our lives. So, and Lakesh and Veritas, everyone, with honor, respect, and gratitude. Before we begin, I'd like for everyone to again hold your water in your hands and with intention in mind, send the frequency of Enlakesh to your water. And then take a sip of the water, thereby assisting through the signaling and incorporating that elevated frequency of Enlakesh into the cells of our body, as we are made of 70% water. And using this technique will assist with the ease and flow of the information we share this evening. All right, everyone, welcome. And Lakesh and Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude. So last week, we spoke on energy and shared with one another our understanding of energy and the various forms and delved more into the aspects of ourselves when we talk about energy. And there are many misconceptions. And today, I just wanted to go over some of the myths when it comes to energy and share experiences on interactions that we have had when it comes to understanding energy. So working with our own innate energy, frankly, strengthens our lives. But we have been taught otherwise, to not trust ourselves and to trust other things, trust outside of ourselves, which I believe has resulted in many suffering. It is basically handing over your power to someone else and disempowering you And unfortunately, a lot of times it's just not a pretty picture. It can be abusive, you know, for resulting in deep fear of our thoughts and basically fear of your own shadow, so to speak. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, but it is so prevalent, drumming up thoughts in your mind, fearful scenarios. It's just a frequency of fear. And that's when trusting outside of self. So the TV and movies play a major role in this fear frequency, and the drumming up a scenario because it's like running a movie or TV show in your mind. So I like to share a story. I'm from Amityville, New York, believe it or not. Um, I went to school, I went to Amityville High. I think you've heard of that movie, Amityville Horror. So the movie was based on a tragic event where a young man named Ronald DeFeo Jr. in 1974 shot and killed 6 members of his family in his house. And I was young at the time. I wasn't at in the high school was only about several blocks away, and this happened in my elementary school years before I got into high school. And so it was said that this house lies on an Indian burial ground with paranormal experiences related to its location, being above an Indian burial ground. However, I did my research, and since I am a clearer, um, I went back and did my research on the history with regards to this area and Long Island. And Indians were the original inhabitant of Long Island, of the whole of Long Island. But most of all, it's not just Long Island, and Indians are the original inhabitants throughout the land of the United States. And that land was acquired disrespectfully. And much of the land was stolen and adulterated, leaving the indigenous Indians with nearly nothing. A lot of Indians who they died of disease that were brought from Europe, smallpox. And if you do your research on Wikipedia, you will not find so much of this information. All you see is like this land was sold to this person and brought this, and it's really the European settlers that are exchanging and selling through monetary gains, where the Indians really didn't gain much from it. And it's not even taught, fully in the school systems. So you can imagine how the indigenous people, the Indians, felt when all of this was happening to their land. And it's a frequency, it's a disrespect to the earth, the burial grounds that were there, the ancestors who came before, and the ancient ancestors of the indigenous Indians. So I bring this story forward to show you how relying on someone else accounts for what transpires and what's going on with you personally can sometimes lead to problems, especially when it's based on fear, because it's a fear frequency that's still in the land and in the area. And that whole fear frequency is a form of control of our thoughts, being fearful and not trusting self, trusting something outside of self that again leads to problems. Does anyone have anything to share regarding this statement, this story, my story? All right.
In Lakesha Veritas, with honor, respect, and gratitude, this is
And
Tiffany.
and Veritas, Tiffany, thank you. What I was thinking gratitude.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback on the theme of that story. Where I grew up, there was an Indian burial ground in Ohio, and it was very well known. And a long time ago, people wanted to build a golf course on it, and they wanted to have a memorial tournament every single year on this golf course that would bring people from all over the world. And they went to it. It was known as Chief Leatherlips, was the chief who was buried there, and some of the tribe, his ancient, recent ancestors were alive, and the people who wanted to build this golf course went and, tried to buy them out, and they owned the land, and they said, absolutely not, they're not in harmony with this, and somehow they were able to acquire it anyway. And
Oh, wow.
I don't know like the politics behind it and the details behind all of that, but eventually they did buy it. And um, every single year, literally, I mean, it's like a joke in Ohio. Every single year it rains on this major memorial tournament. Like, it has never, in 30 years that I've known about this tournament, there's never been a weekend that it hasn't rained on that tournament. They'll move it like 3 weeks out or a week before, or try to, like, it's going to be sunny in 7 days, so we'll move it to there instead. It always rains. And so it's just the memory in the land, and in that idea of, the land was not in harmony, the indigenous people were not in harmony with it. And so the idea that was trying to be brought forward on it, was not congruent. And so
Right.
it's fascinating. It's fascinating how, all of this can come to
Right. The
be.
universe, right. The universe is like answering that they're in disagreement with what is going on and
Right.
what's there. I mean, the truth is coming out,
The
basically.
truth is coming out every single, and so yes, every single time, every single year. And so it just made me think of that. So I wanted to bring that forward.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. There's so many other stories. Does anybody else have anything to share? I do have another story. um, Historical trauma. It's not just related to Long Island. Again, Tiffany's bringing her story, and that was Ohio, correct? What we're talking about?
Yes, correct.
Okay, okay. So now I'm in Georgia, and so we can talk about Lake Lanier out here in Georgia. A great, supposedly great vacation spot for the family. And, does anyone know the truth about this vacation spot, Lake Lanier? Well, there was a whole town by the name of Oscarville in Forsyth County that's underneath that lake. The entire town was flooded back in the 1950s. And before the land it was buried in water, it was a lush and fertile land with rabbits, squirrels, a huge thriving community, primarily of African American descent. And so how it goes is that a woman, 18-year-old woman, was found beaten and unconscious in the woods, and eventually died 2 weeks later. But she was also reported to have been raped. And so two black male teenagers were tried as adult and accused of sexual assault for them all in one day. They were arrested and sentenced to death all in one day, and then they were lynched. So after the lynching of the teens, a mob of white males from Georgia raided Oscarville, either killing or chasing out all the blacks in the area. And this happened around the 1920s. And there was a total of 1,100 people who were driven out of Oscarville and the surrounding areas. And then later on, there was a congressional approval with a $45 million allocation to create a lake intended for a hydroelectric power source in this whole area. And so they built a dam. The groundbreaking of the Buford Dam was created in started in March of 1950, and the work this dam created the Lake Lanier, which was completed in 1957, completely covering Oscarville, the once thriving community for African Americans. And when you go into the literature, you can go into Wikipedia, and they talk about Lake Lanier and how it was thriving and all that stuff, but they kind of like leave that out. They're starting to bring it up because more people are speaking up about it and speaking and bringing forth the truth. Amber Ruffin, she has a talk show, and she brought all that information out because she also revealed not just um, this area, Lake Lanier, but there's tons and tons of other towns that were drowned out for the most part. One in particular, Central Park, New York, where it was the home of former black neighborhood called York Hill, which and then also called Seneca Village, which later became Central Park Reservoir, and that's what it is. It's a Central Park Reservoir. So, any comments behind that? And I'm giving you like a historical um, review. So now, what I want to do is I want to share. Let's go over like a little exercise. I'm going to go over and ask you whether it's true or false. You could blurt it out, if it's true or it's a myth. So, okay, one. Let's start with one. So, if a penny is dropped from the Empire State Building, it can kill a person on the sidewalk. Is that true or false? Actually, it's false. The penny will reach the terminal velocity between 30 and 100 miles per hour, depending on the wind. And it might hurt, but it won't kill anyone. Okay, so let's go to the next question. So when the toilet flushes, it spins in a different direction in the southern hemisphere.
True.
Both directions can be found in both hemispheres, so that's false. Okay, so this is another question. Lightning never strikes the same place twice.
False.
Correct. The myth is not only wrong, it's dangerously wrong, they say. So lightning often strikes at the same place twice, at least within a close vicinity of it. Okay, another question. Bananas grow on trees.
True.
Yeah, well, this is a plant.
True, but it might be called a plant instead of a tree.
Yeah, it's called it's a perennial herb. It's not a tree. Okay, so the largest living organism is the blue whale. True or false? So we're talking about organism. So I'll go ahead and reveal the answer. So
False.
yeah, so the blue whale might be the largest ocean creature, but the redwood forest includes the tallest trees. So that's the largest organism. Okay, this might be interesting because a lot of people hear this. The mustard seed is the smallest seed. Is that true or false?
False.
So many seeds are smaller than the mustard seed. That includes the poppy seed, the duckweed, and watermeal. And this is a myth from biblical origins. There's another question. We have 5 senses. I think most of us know that.
False.
False.
So they're saying that we've got proprioception, equilibriumception. So you can say that there are 9 senses that are documented in the books, but we may even have more than that. Who knows? Okay. The next question: human beings evolved from apes. True or false? I'll tell you, it's false.
False.
So humans did evolve from an ancestor that's far from more than ape-like than humans. So probably we're off-world. I'm just saying, we came from somewhere else, but it wasn't from an ape. Humans use only 10% of their brains. Probably get the theme here. That's false too. This is about our brains are quite busy using about 20%. We've also got DNA activation, and we're trying to utilize more of our brains, but we have more brain power than they give us credit for. Okay, are bats blind? No. they see better at night and they see in black and white, but they're not blind. Sharks don't get cancer. And
False.
yeah,
False.
that's correct. So sharks do get cancer, but not as often as other animals, but they do get cancer. I wonder if they do a historical check with all the adulteration that we're doing, that may have changed. Another one would be interesting. Elephants are afraid of mice.
False.
False.
Yeah, they have no particular fear of mice. That was in like children's stories, and that was a myth. This is kind of an interesting one. Goldfish have a 3 to 7 second memory. Thinking of, I think of Dory, in
Oh,
what's that?
False.
yeah, that's probably
False.
false.
So goldfish can learn basic skills and remember them for up to 3 months, and they can even tell time. Is what is written here. Which is interesting. And another question: ducks quack but don't echo, which is kind of weird.
False.
Yeah, that's false. So ducks quack, honk, yelp, and squeal do echo. They it echoes. So, and I have one more I want to share with you. Oh, okay. It's this one. Mice love cheese. True or false?
False.
Yeah,
They like grains.
exactly. They prefer seed and grains, but they don't necessarily have a preference for cheese. And then crunchy peanut butter, they're saying, is another common mouse bait, but it's not preferred. Maybe they prefer smooth peanut butter, but it's not necessarily preferred.
And which is fun, like or funny because cats who like mice like cheese, but the mice don't like the cheese.
Okay. Okay. So, these are myths that have been created that people tend to just follow, and it's not necessarily true. You know, um, it's like for this story of Lake Lanier, the fear in what people then see from historically is ingrained in us for so long that we no longer trust ourselves, and it gets into our DNA. And we've been programmed to not trust self because of this fear, to trust outside of ourselves. And this, I believe, is the root of a lot of myths that have been developed from outside of ourselves. And we know logically that what we should do our research and find out answers. But we've been programmed to take for granted whatever someone else from outside of us tells us, from those whom have been deemed quote unquote reliable sources. But ask yourself, where has this practice led to you and many others? Are those answers outside of you serving you? You need to then ask your question and trust yourself and see and try to get the answers. Karen, are you? Oh, and Stephanie, is anyone?
Implication veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude, everyone. One of
Yeah.
the biggest myths is Santa Claus. I mean,
Oh.
clearly, he cannot fit in the chimney. I mean, if you just think, people just think about some of the things that have been said and some of the things that we've been taught. And I never told my children that Santa Claus was real.
Hmm.
But that is, a big myth that they perpetuate. And, you know, it just, most of the stuff that we have learned is not true.
Right.
Most of it. Most of it has been, altered, flipped inside out,
Hmm.
flipped sideways, however you want to put it. Um, just it's just an atrocity.
Yeah. Yeah. There's if you look at the true history, and they say like if you like Google dark history of of Christmas, there's this like evil like sidekick called Krampus who punishes children. It's crazy. It's crazy. They kind of like suppress that information. You know,
In La Kitchen Veritas with
but
unrespecting. Oh,
yes, Tiffany. Alopecia
uh,
Verde.
I was also going to say that just I think it all starts at such a young age, depending on the house you grow up in, of just, you're supposed to either trust and respect adults because they're adults and anything they say, or you're taught to ask questions and question everything everyone says, and
Right.
it's just interesting how so much of what we believe and why we believe it and where it comes from is ingrained in us from such an early age.
Yeah,
And just I feel like some children, just because someone else says something, anything they hear, they think to be true. And I'm always questioning things and I'm always saying, I don't know, let's look up the answer or let's figure it out or let's ask our spiritual committee,
exactly.
and to try to teach my daughter differently. The other day, this is just a funny story. She was like, Mom, do turtles breathe out of their butts? And I was like, honey, I actually have no idea. And I said, it seems quite fascinating. I'm not sure. Let's look that up. She said, well, Olaf says it's true. And I said, well, honey, Olaf is a snowman in a movie, and, snowmen in movies are not reliable sources. And so we talked about what a reliable source was, and she was like, oh, well, are adults reliable sources? And I was like, no,
Oh
all
wow, that's a
adults
deep
are not
question.
reliable sources. Just because adults say something,
That's a deep.
it was
Oh
huge.
wow,
And then
wow.
apparently, then she, a few days later, was like, Mom, Olaf said that water has memory, and that's true. Water does have memory, so snowmen must be reliable sources. And I was like, well, honey, maybe that snowman is a reliable source. Let's talk about it on a case by case situation on what's being said. But it was just interesting. Like I didn't have these conversations. Like I didn't talk about the term reliable source until I was writing a critical essay in high school. And so
Right.
it's just so interesting. But it was pretty hilarious as well.
Thanks for that story. I mean, it's so important, because doing our diligence and checking our sources is important to find out what's truth.
Right. And I think even taking it to that next level of not only just looking up the information like we're taught in school.
But even asking our guidance, our guide, trusting ourselves because we can feel whether something is right or wrong. I mean, and we need to start thinking about doing these things to protect ourselves and our children. There are predators out there.
Absolutely.
The pedophilia that is found in from organized institutions who have gotten away with their egregious acts for so long because they've been gone on unchecked. You know, so those scary feelings of um of fear outside, I believe, have been created by a lot of myths that are out there, falsehoods, and that's what it is, falsehood. And this is a frequency that can be cleared. Your mind.
If someone's in that position of authority, whether it's religious authority or in a school setting or in a parental setting, I was raised to not question that. And so,
And a lot of people were, and as
right,
a result, they got in trouble. They
right,
got in trouble for
100%.
that.
Yeah.
Not
Who's
speaking
that?
their truth.
My phone?
And taught my kids. I taught them from the very beginning to protect themselves. Mommy's not afraid of anything, so don't let anybody scare you.
And
Kids from
100%. We have
Ah,
that
esa sí.
conversation. Yes.
Samba pa.
So the media and the movies have done a whammy on us. Sereni, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. So the media, they've done a whammy on us, feeding us into that fear to
That was
control
me
our
making
thoughts
all
and
the
our
noise.
actions, So we have to decide, are we going to continue with those fears? Or are we going to step up and do something about it, conquer those fears? Because most of the time they're just made up in our minds, the whole scenario. Anyone have any thoughts behind that? Any stories to share? The way they grew up, myths, stories. So next week, I want to share a discussion on how we can use energy to benefit us, what can be done for us. From a personal perspective, I want to share the things that I do, and how can energy serve us. And I'm going to ask, everyone to kind of join in and share the ways that they work with energy to optimize your own energy to better serve you. Any other questions? All right, this is going to be an early.
I just had a fascinating experience for like 30 seconds if we have time to share because um,
Absolutely.
so like most people on the line, I'm a property clearer, and so I clear my path. I clear the places that I go before I go to them, and I've been having these experiences where we've been supposed to go to somebody's house or to an event at a location, and I clear it, and then immediately within hours the event's canceled or the location is shifted to a different
Yeah,
spot.
right. hmm Oops, I think we lost you, Tiffany. Tiffany, are you there? Okay. Tiffany?
Yep, can you hear me now?
Yes.
The other day we were supposed to go somewhere, and I was getting ready to clear it, but I didn't have time to clear. I was like, okay, I'll clear it in a few hours. But I felt like the event needed to be canceled or moved. And within moments of me thinking it, I hadn't even stepped into clearing it. And I knew once I cleared it, that result was going to happen. But it was just the thought of it. I got a text that said it was canceled. I'm
hmm
like, what? And so it
Wow.
doesn't happen that way all the time. Um, well, I guess it does happen that way all the time. I didn't have enough belief that it happened that way all the time, and so now I am completely in that space of understanding that, what we think about, we bring about. And I was so, I don't even know, in awe of the power of our minds. It was just the thinking it shifted it instantly. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
Thank you
Thank you.
for bringing that forward because, that's what we're going to talk about next week because we have the power to shift things by the way we think, how we think. And it's all energetics. It's not woo woo, it's science, it's quantum physics, and so if we learn about it, understand it, then we're able to work with it and work with it in our favor, instead of avoiding it, trusting in someone else. You have, for instance, you have someone that's helping you, from a spiritual sense, let's say, but you have no idea what they're doing, but you entrust yourself with that person, that individual. But in the meantime, you've got to actually do your diligence and see, has this person historically helped people, or, is this another form of controlling the situation so that you keep returning? Is this person empowering you, or are they disempowering you? So, and you have to ask yourself. And the thing is that been we distrust ourselves so much that we just rely on something, someone, some factor outside of ourselves for so long. So we're here on Clubhouse to share with everyone how to empower yourselves so that you can find the answers and make the right decisions for yourself.
In the Catch and Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. May I share a quick story?
Absolutely. Implication Veritas, please.
So it's so interesting that you said that, and it's so interesting that a lot of times the fear, we know that it comes from the DNA, but to see it come from family, it can just be so empowering to know that we do have guidance that we can consult. So I recently moved and I was living with my family, and I waited to tell them until everything was secure, everything was a go.
Yeah.
And when I told them, they were just like, well, why didn't you prepare us? Why didn't you let us know ahead of time so we could have consulted, so we could have spoke about it?
Well, they can stop you. Go ahead.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I'm hearing this, and the beauty of being able to see the truth and hear the truth. I was just like, no. My guidance knew exactly what I need to do. I asked my guidance multiple times, should I tell them now? Should I talk to them now about it? They were like, no, no, no. And so just seeing why I shouldn't have and seeing the truth of it, it was so freeing. And it was one of those situations like I love them because they're my family, but I know that it wasn't in my best and highest good what they were trying to do, control me,
Right.
enslave me.
Right.
So seeing the fear come from those that birthed us or, have been with us and quote unquote love us, we have to really stand in our own power sometimes and really see what the truth is and see what is really in our best and highest good, and not allow others' fear to become our fear. Because I saw the fear, I felt the fear when I was having the conversation and the words that were being expressed. And, some comments of like, oh, well, you hurt me by doing this. And it was
Mm-hmm.
just like, but it's not about you. Respectfully, it's what's best for myself and my children.
Right.
So again, I know that I lived in that fear that they had, but to be able to release that fear was so imperative and empowering.
Yeah.
So I understand how it all can happen and how we get stuck in that cycle of fear controlling our lives. In the question, Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude.
Thank you, Stacy. Implication Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude. Bravo. That's all I have to say. Bravo for doing
Thank
that.
you.
You know, and it's just a fear that when you want to do something, but then you're bombarded by other people's opinions and so forth, that that they instill that fear in you, and then you shift your mind and change your mind, and then later on you're like, man, why did I do? I could have done this way or that way.
And
You
it's the
know.
guilt as well that they try to add on.
Oh, absolutely,
If
absolutely.
the fear didn't work, okay, let me try some guilt. Let me try some shame. Let me throw all those vibrations at you to see if I can change your mind.
Mhm. 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 And it's actually mythical too, because it's a myth, because they think that you're not going to be able to handle it or make it, not even giving you the benefit of the doubt or the chance to go through that experience so that you can overcome it, because later on there are more doors that are going to open for you. So
Yes.
it,
And I also want to add, it just helped me to see the beauty and power of oneness. It made me think if they could see themselves within me and see the blessings and see me stepping into more, then they would be happy. They would encourage it. But, that separation is just, oh no, I can't see it. So I'm going to, put all these fears and doubts and worries on you instead of just being, you know what? I might not like it in this moment, but I see it's best for you.
right, right. Well, I mean, later on it'll be seen when you when you're victorious, and show them. So people, to me, they respond by seeing it. You can tell them until you're blue in the face. That's even speaking to your children. I'm personally talking to myself. I tell my kids till I'm blue in the face, but it's the examples, what they do follow. So thank you for that story. Anyone else have anything else to share? All right. Well, I want to remind everyone that next week we've got our Divine Nation workshop scheduled for next Friday, January 6th. I think, is that next Friday? Or maybe next year, 2 weeks Friday. I think that is. Yeah. And it's the Divine Nation working with the Call for Truth Divination deck, the companion to the Call for Truth publication written by Lota Rasul. Completely free and a lot of fun. So consider signing up. And we have our ongoing whole responsibility meditation scheduled on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays of every week, with several options available of times to join. Completely free, great way to clear, shift, and raise your vibration throughout the week. It's a true tool that can pop you out of those that lower vibrational state if you use it and you work with it. So it can the please note that the Zoom link for whole responsibility is the same, and because I send out reminders. So regardless, you can use that old link. It doesn't change. It's the same link. So you can utilize that same link. Our Clubhouse link, however, changes weekly. So you can, I'm sending out a new type of flyer where it will send you to the website to be able to get that link, for logistical reasons with regards to sending out the link directly from the text messages. But once you go to the website, all you have to do is get the link, click on the link and it'll take you into the Clubhouse. And there'll be a quick link for the website as well. All right. So thank you everyone for joining, participating in this event. Look forward to seeing you next week for our discussion on how our energy can serve us. And remember, knowledge is power, and taking action from this knowledge is true power. With honor, respect, and gratitude, and Lakesh and Veritas.
And Lakesh Veritas,
And
on
we have
respect
to
and
really talk to
gratitude.
you. Gratitude.
And the Christian Veritas, on respect and gratitude.